Hi, my name's James. I wanted to talk about just some ideas that I've had that I've gotten over the years and heard from other people about finding more time to read and figuring out what to read. Um, we'll see how this goes. It's raining. These headphones are really patchy and broken, and you can hear that this umbrella broke. I undid it, and I pressed the button, and then literally the head part just flew off onto the ground. So I kind of just stuck it back on here. We'll see how this goes. So, first of all, finding time to read. I like the quote from St. John Paul II, who, the Pope, who super busy guy, right? Pope, and somehow found the time to ski and do all these things, and pray for a long time every day and all this stuff, while also fulfilling his responsibilities. And this reporter asked him, "How do you ever find time to do all that?" And he said, "I don't understand the question. All I have is time." And so everyone has the same amount of time, right? But we have different responsibilities. And self-knowledge, figuring out your weaknesses. Do you spend too much time, for instance, watching Netflix for the last hour, 20 minutes of the day? Do you watch YouTube right before bed when you could read instead? Yeah, that rhymes. Then that self-knowledge will help you figure out how you can find time to read. But there's some different ideas that I've gotten over the years. Some of them pretty obvious, but you just need to implement them, right, in order to find time, or make that time, so to speak. One is your format. So I drive 2 hours every day for commute to my work, to my job. So I listen to a lot of audiobooks. I know some people really don't like audiobooks. I do think I prefer a physical book, and I've heard that there's studies show that there's benefits to that instead of an audiobook. But I mean, you do what you can, right? So if that's the best option for you, then go for audiobooks. There's some really good narrators out there. You can tell that I mostly listen to British audiobooks because I say narrator instead of narrator. A lot of really good ones, like Tim Curry narrates some books, James Langton, Robert Inglis, and some other people who are just stellar narrators, and it's a lot of fun to listen to them. And there's a ton of books on audiobook now that you can get, right? So that's a really good option. Finding time, Stephen King talks about carrying a book with you wherever you go. I don't love that, but again, like if you can do that, then maybe that's what you do right now. So when he's in line waiting for something, he pulls out his book and reads it, right? When you have a coffee date or a meeting with a friend or whatever, then when they're late, if you hang out with me, I'll be late, then read while you're waiting for me. And vice versa. So that's another option. I read during breakfast and supper. So again, I drive a lot, but I like physical books, and there's some books that suck to read, like to listen to. Like I'm reading Faust right now, and that's a play, and I don't even know what the audiobook would be like. There are some, I think. But anyway, I read during breakfast or supper, right? That's a really good time for me, and I carve out that time because I like to start my day slow and end it relaxingly. So those can be some good options for you right before bed as well. Just set up that time. Maybe on a weekend, carve out time, like an hour or two. I know that sounds like a lot. Side note, put your phone in another room if that's distracting you, and just set an alarm if you don't have a clock in your room, so you'll hear it go off, right? Oh, it's been an hour, awesome. That way you don't check it all the time. It's like, oh, I finished the page, check my phone. That's what I found myself doing. So it just takes self-discipline. But it sounds like a lot of time, but you're worth it. And it's worth it. It's self-care. It's just as important as spending time with your friends and working, right? You need to work. You need to have a job that's fulfilling, or that's meaningful. I think that's a better word. And you need to have friends, and you need to sleep, and you need to read. I think you should. And if you're watching this, you probably think so too, or someone sent it to you. But we'll do another video about the benefits of that maybe. But this is for people who maybe are already trying to find that time. But next is what to read. I'm gonna this is like the asterisk at the bottom, and I'm just gonna put it more as a forward to this discussion. What you want. Alright, so if you know you have a weakness, you can overcome that and read something that you're not generally used to, right? If you only read YA fiction, then you're like, I should read something more challenging. Pick up Shakespeare, pick up a classic, pick up Count of Monte Cristo, or something like that. Pick up Lord of the Rings. Read something, or even The Hobbit if you want a shorter one, right? But read something that is more challenging and going to nourish you more than contemporary YA fiction. Older YA fiction like Anne of Green Gables is great. I would call that YA, but that's not really what we think of when we say YA anymore, because it's from 100 years ago, over 100 years ago. So yeah, read what you want, but again, yeah, challenge yourself. That's good to do. C.S. Lewis, my dad was telling me about this, so I might be quoting a bit wrong. He talks about the importance of reading old books, and he says, obviously I don't want you to only read old books, because then you wouldn't read what I'm writing, right? So he says a good idea would be to read every, I think the ideal is for every new book you read an old book. If you can't do that, I think for every 3 new books, or for every 2. Stay on, please, just a little longer. I don't know if you can see this. It's not supposed to be like that. For every, I think it's every 3 new books you read an old book. Which isn't bad, right? That way you're getting different ideas from different people who had a totally different experience from you because they live in a different century or something like that, right? Different millennium if you go far back enough. So, well, actually, you have to go back like 23 years to do a different millennium, but you know what I mean, right? So yeah, that can be train of thought. Come back. What to read? Classics. Old books. Yeah. Take book recommendations from friends. I made a rule to only read books recommended by friends. By the way, I broke that rule and I'm reading Sweep by Jonathan Auxier right now, which I'm really enjoying. I'm almost done. I have like 2 hours left in 8-hour audiobook. Very well narrated. So I've broken that rule recently and I'm enjoying my breaking it. But that can be something that's good for you. Take some book recommendations. If you want some, comment below and I'll give you some. Just tell me a little bit about what you're looking for or why you don't like reading. If you don't like reading, then tell me why you don't and I'll give you some advice as best I can without really knowing you. But that can be good. You can go wrong with classics. I really didn't like Lord of the Flies or Of Mice and Men. But again, if you don't like it, that's okay. They're still well written. There's a lot of good things to benefit from those books, right? But yeah, generally, if a book has been acclaimed for over 100 years by people of different times, generations, and cultures to be a classic, then it's a good opportunity, I think this is a pretty good general statement, that it can critique you. You don't critique it, generally, right? You don't read Count of Monte Cristo and say, overrated. You might not like it, but that it's an objectively good book, basically. So there are shorter ones, though, right? I love Anne of Green Gables. That's a great book. There's a lot of good shorter works out there. To Kill a Mockingbird is not that long. Sherlock Holmes, short stories and novels, right? Those are great. So those can be some good options for you, but find someone who you're like, oh, gosh, I wish I read like them, like they did. I should say like they, or should I? Yeah. So find someone who's reading you, who you respect reading wise, who's maybe not a snob, but whom you're like, I wish I read, I'd read the books they have, and read them. And just remember, this is for you. In the end, if a book isn't benefiting you, if you're not being nourished by it, if you're hating it, that doesn't mean it's bad, doesn't mean never read it, but maybe this isn't the best time to read it. But use some self-discipline if you're the kind of person who never finishes a book, and finish a good book. I find one that's not just one you randomly picked off a shelf. If you randomly pick a book off a shelf, a lot of those aren't worth finishing. But those can be some good guidelines that maybe help you, just give you some ideas. So let me know below if this was helpful. If you have any ideas for yourself that you want to let me know about, let anyone else know about. If you want to hear more, watch or listen to, ideally you do both, more videos about what I've been reading and what I'll do a review eventually of Sweep. So what I've been reading, or any other books, ideas about reading, about literature, talking more about the benefits of different types of literature, just throwing around ideas, then go ahead and hit subscribe. That was a long way of saying please hit subscribe below. Even if you don't want to see any more videos, please hit subscribe below, because that's what everyone else says. Alright, cheers, bye.